Casey always believed that family was supposed to be your foundation, the people who would lift you up when the world tried to drag you down. Growing up, she used to imagine her parents cheering from the sidelines of her life, clapping as she took steps toward her dreams, encouraging her to reach higher every time she stumbled. But the truth she lived with was very different. Her family didn't clap, they criticized. They didn't encourage, they compared. And no matter how hard she tried, they always found a way to tell her she was not enough. On this particular evening, Casey came home with something she had dreamed about for years. She had spent months preparing, working long hours at the hotel where she had slowly climbed her way up from receptionist to management trainee, and now, finally, she had been promoted to assistant general manager. It wasn't just a title. It was recognition of her hard work, her leadership, her ability to turn chaos into order. And along with that title came her biggest project yet, a presentation for corporate investors that could put her hotel on the map. Casey walked into the house carrying a bag with small gifts, perfume for her mother, a leather wallet for her father, and a t-shirt for her younger brother. She thought, maybe tonight would be different. Maybe when she shared her good news, they'd smile, hug her, even just say, "We're proud." She set the bag on the table, trying to hide her excitement. "I got promoted today," she said softly at first, then louder when no one responded. "I'm the new assistant general manager. And tomorrow, I'll be giving a presentation to the corporate investors." For a moment, there was silence. Her mother glanced up from chopping vegetables in the kitchen but said nothing. Her father laughed, a sharp, mocking laugh that sliced through the room. "Assistant manager, that's nothing. They probably just gave you that title to keep you working harder. Don't get ahead of yourself." Her brother, sprawled across the couch scrolling on his phone, added, "Wow, pathetic. You're acting like you just became CEO. It's just some stupid hotel job." The sting of their words hit Casey hard, but she forced a smile and pushed the bag toward them. "I brought you something. Just a little thank you for all the support," she began, but her father cut her off. "Support? Don't flatter yourself. You've been wasting your time chasing after jobs instead of thinking about real life. When are you going to settle down, huh? Get married, have kids. That's what matters, not this nonsense promotion." Casey felt her throat tighten, but she swallowed hard, refusing to let them see her break. She reached into her tote and pulled out her sleek silver laptop. "This is for tomorrow's presentation. I've been working on it for weeks. It's the most important thing I've ever done." Her brother snorted. "Let me see." He reached for the laptop, but Casey pulled it back. "No," she said firmly. "This isn't a toy. It has everything I've worked on." That only seemed to provoke him. "Oh come on, what are you so scared of? That I'll find out your big fancy project is just boring hotel crap." He lunged again, this time grabbing the laptop before Casey could stop him. "Give it back," she cried, reaching for it. Her father, instead of intervening, leaned back with an amused smirk. "Let him see. Maybe he'll show you how useless your work really is." Casey's heart pounded as her brother held the laptop high above his head like it was some kind of prize. "What's on here, huh? Some slides about towels and room service," he mocked. And then, in one swift motion that seemed to happen in slow motion, he hurled it to the floor. The crack of shattering plastic and glass echoed through the house. Casey froze, her eyes wide, her chest hollow. Her laptop lay in pieces on the hardwood floor, the screen spider-webbed, keys scattered. "That's what I think of your promotion," her brother sneered. Casey dropped to her knees, her hands trembling as she touched the broken device. "No," she whispered, "no, no, no, that laptop wasn't just metal and wires. It held her entire presentation. It held the weeks of late nights, the carefully designed graphs, the proposals, the words she had practiced over and over. It was everything she needed for tomorrow. And now, it was gone." Her father's voice was cold. "See, this is why you shouldn't put all your energy into nonsense. You're weak. A little thing like this, and you fall apart." Her brother laughed. "Pathetic. What are you gonna do now, cry your way through your meeting?" Tears welled in Casey's eyes, but she blinked them back, forcing her breathing to steady. Her heart was breaking, but beneath the heartbreak was something stronger. Anger. Resolve. She rose slowly, clutching the ruined laptop to her chest like it was a body she was laying to rest. She looked directly at them, her father lounging smugly, her brother grinning cruelly. And with a voice low but steady, she said, "You think you've destroyed me. But you've just made the biggest mistake of your life." They laughed. They didn't believe her. But Casey knew. Deep down, she knew. This was no longer just about a promotion or a presentation. This was about every insult, every taunt, every time they made her feel small. Tonight, they thought they had broken her. But tonight was the night she decided she would rise so high that they would regret ever trying to keep her down. Casey carried the broken laptop into her room and shut the door behind her. The sound of her father's chuckling still echoed in her ears, the cruel laughter of her brother still cutting into her chest. She set the shattered device gently on her desk, staring at it as if by some miracle it would turn back on. But it didn't. The screen was black, the pieces lifeless. It was gone. Her hands trembled, her breathing shallow, but she refused to let herself fall apart. Not tonight. Not when everything she had worked for was on the line. She sat on the edge of her bed, pressing her palms against her knees to keep steady. For a few moments, her mind was blank, caught between despair and fury. Then slowly, like a light flickering on in the darkness, an idea began to take shape. She reached for her phone and opened her email. Weeks earlier, she had sent drafts of her slides to her manager for feedback. She scrolled, praying they were still there. And then, relief washed over her. They were. Not the final version, not the polished product, but enough to rebuild. Enough to fight back. Casey exhaled shakily, a mix of gratitude and determination filling her chest. They thought they had ruined her. They thought she'd crumble and fail. But she wasn't going to give them that satisfaction. Tonight, she would work until her eyes burned, until her hands ached, until her presentation was whole again. She connected her phone to the small TV in her room, turning it into her new screen. With a borrowed keyboard from an old box in her closet, she began to rebuild. Slide by slide, word by word, she poured herself into the work. The house outside her door was alive with noise, her brother's laughter, her father's booming voice, the occasional clatter of dishes, but Casey shut it all out. Hours passed. Midnight turned to 1, 1 turned to 2. Her eyelids felt heavy, her shoulders sore, but she refused to stop. She whispered to herself with every slide she restored, "I can do this. I will do this. They won't win." By the time the first light of dawn crept through her curtains, Casey had something she could stand behind. Maybe not perfect, maybe not exactly what she had lost, but strong. Strong enough to impress. Strong enough to prove them wrong. She stood in front of her mirror, brushing her hair back, putting on her tailored navy suit. Her eyes were rimmed red from exhaustion, but in them burned a fire her family had never seen. She looked at her reflection and said, "You're ready." Downstairs, her father barely glanced at her. "Don't embarrass yourself," he muttered. Her brother smirked. "Good luck convincing anyone you matter." Casey didn't reply. She didn't need to. She simply picked up her bag, walked out the door, and didn't look back. At the hotel, the conference hall buzzed with energy. Executives in crisp suits mingled, investors adjusted their ties, assistants hustled to and fro with coffee and documents. Casey's heart pounded as she sat up, but her hands didn't shake. She connected her phone to the projector, pulled up her rebuilt presentation, and took a steadying breath. When it was her turn, she walked to the front of the room, shoulders square, chin lifted. The murmurs quieted. All eyes were on her. "Good morning," she began, her voice clear, strong. "Today, I'm here to share a vision. Not just numbers, not just rooms and rates, but a future for our hotel that will put us on the map." As she spoke, something incredible happened. The exhaustion, the fear, the pain from last night, it all melted away. She became electric, commanding, her words flowing with passion and precision. She painted pictures of luxury experiences, of innovative hospitality ideas, of financial growth that made even the most skeptical investors lean forward in their seats. Slide after slide, Casey shined brighter. And when she reached the final one, she let her words linger in the silence that followed. Then, applause. Real, thunderous applause. The CEO stood, smiling broadly. "Casey, that was phenomenal. You've shown vision, leadership, and resilience. Consider this not only a promotion, but the start of your leadership track with us." Casey's chest swelled. She bowed her head slightly, thanking them, but inside she was screaming. She had done it. She had risen from the ashes of sabotage and humiliation, and she had triumphed. After the meeting, colleagues congratulated her, shaking her hand, praising her work. She smiled graciously, but in her heart, there was only one thought. Wait until my father and brother see this. On her way home, the city seemed brighter, the air fresher. The world felt like it had opened its doors for her. But beneath the pride, there was a quiet steel. She wasn't just happy, she was ready. Ready to turn her pain into power. Ready to show her family that the girl they mocked would become the woman they could never control. When she walked back into the house, her father was in his usual spot, the TV flashing across his face. Her brother lounged nearby, munching on chips. Neither looked up at first. How'd it go? Her father asked without real interest. Casey set her bag down, her expression calm, almost serene. It went perfectly. I got the promotion. And not just that, they've given me leadership of a new project. It comes with a big raise. For the first time, both men looked up. Her brother frowned. Her father's phone lowered. Don't exaggerate, her father said, but his voice lacked the usual bite. Casey smiled faintly, her words slow and deliberate. No exaggeration. I'm making more than both of you now. Combined. The silence that followed was sweeter than any applause. Her father's jaw tightened, though he tried to mask it with a dismissive scoff. Money doesn't mean respect, Casey. Don't let it get to your head. Her brother muttered under his breath, still pathetic. Casey didn't answer. She had learned that her silence carried more weight than their insults ever could. She picked up her bag, walked past them, and went straight to her room. The victory was hers, and nothing they said could strip it away. That night, as she sat on her bed reviewing project plans, Casey thought about how strange it felt to celebrate alone. The people who should have been proud were the very ones who tried to destroy her. She remembered the sound of her laptop hitting the floor, her brother's smug grin, her father's cruel laughter. Those memories still burned in her chest. But now, she had something she had never had before, power. Real power. The kind that opened doors, the kind that silenced doubters. And she knew she wasn't going to waste it. The next few weeks flew by. At work, Casey thrived. Her team respected her, clients trusted her, and upper management began to notice the way she turned obstacles into opportunities. She stayed late, not because she had to, but because she wanted to. For the first time in her life, she felt like she belonged somewhere, like her efforts truly mattered. At home, the distance grew. Her father still barked orders, her brother still mocked, but Casey was no longer the same. Their words slid off her like rain on glass. She stopped eating dinner with them. She stopped asking for their opinion. And little by little, she stopped doing things that made their lives easier. Her brother noticed first. One Friday night, he knocked on her door. Hey, Casey, can you lend me $100? I'll pay you back next week. Casey didn't even look up from her laptop. No. What do you mean, no? He snapped. I mean no, I'm not your bank. Figure it out. He glared at her, his face flushing red. You think just because you've got some stupid promotion, you're better than everyone. Casey finally looked up, her eyes cold. No, I know I'm better than the way you've treated me. And I won't let you use me anymore. Now get out of my room. Her brother stormed off, slamming the door so hard the frame rattled. The very next week, her father tried his luck. Your mother wants a new washing machine. Since you're swimming in money now, why don't you buy it? Casey set down her coffee cup slowly. You broke my laptop. Do you remember that? He frowned. What does that have to do with anything? Everything, she said sharply. That laptop was worth more than a washing machine. And it was mine. You destroyed it without a second thought. So no, I won't be buying you anything. Her father's nostrils flared, his face reddening. But Casey simply stood, picked up her keys, and walked out the door. It was the first time she felt the shift in power. They weren't used to her saying no. They weren't used to her standing tall. And for the first time, they didn't have an immediate answer. At work, Casey's reputation grew. She was invited to industry dinners, recognized in corporate newsletters, and even offered mentorship opportunities. She invested her money wisely, setting aside savings and treating herself to small luxuries, things her family never thought she deserved. And yet, the more she rose, the more her family seemed to shrink. Her father's voice lost its authority, her brother's insults sounded weaker. Even her mother, who had always stayed silent, began to look at Casey differently, almost with quiet admiration. One evening, her mother slipped into her room. "Casey," she whispered, "I'm proud of you." Casey froze. It was the first time she had ever heard those words from her. For a moment, she almost softened. But then she remembered the night of the broken laptop, the silence from her mother as her father and brother mocked her. That silence had been betrayal, too. "Thanks," Casey said flatly, turning back to her work. The truth was, she wasn't ready to forgive. Not yet. Maybe not ever. Her revenge didn't need to be loud or violent. It didn't need to look like what her father and brother expected. Her revenge would be quiet, calculated, undeniable. She would build a life so far above theirs that they would choke on their own bitterness. She would leave them behind, and they would have no choice but to watch her succeed. Late at night, as she lay in bed staring at the ceiling, Casey whispered to herself, "You tried to keep me small. But I'll make sure you never forget how big I became." Casey's mornings became a rhythm of quiet strength. She would wake before dawn, slip into her sleek work clothes, and head to the hotel with her laptop bag slung over her shoulder. Her reflection in the lobby's glass doors reminded her that she was no longer the timid daughter who cowered under insults. She was a manager, a leader, someone people relied on. At home, the contrast was stark. Her father lingered in the living room with his half-empty whiskey glass, grumbling about politics. Her brother sat hunched over video games, headphones glued to his head, waiting for someone else to pay for his life. Every time Casey walked through the door, she felt like a stranger in her own house. And maybe that was exactly what she needed to become, a stranger to them, someone untouchable. One Sunday morning, her father called from the kitchen, his voice sharp. "Casey, we're short on the mortgage this month. You're going to cover it." She paused in the hallway, coffee in hand. "No, that's your responsibility, not mine. You live under this roof, don't you?" he snapped. "Then you contribute." Her jaw tightened. "I already contribute, every time you break something of mine, every time you tear me down. I'm done funding your failures." The silence that followed was heavy. Her father's face hardened, his pride wounded. But Casey didn't flinch. She walked out the front door without another word, leaving him to stew in his anger. At work, she threw herself into excellence. She negotiated contracts, soothed difficult guests, and earned the trust of senior executives. One afternoon, her director pulled her aside. "Casey, corporate is looking at you for a regional training role. It's not official yet, but be ready." Her heart raced. A regional role meant travel, influence, and a salary her family could only dream of. She thanked her director, but inside, she was already imagining the look on her father's face when he realized she had soared to heights he could never reach. Back at home, the cracks in her family's armor grew. Her brother's car broke down, and he begged her for help. "Casey, come on. Just a few hundred to get it fixed. I'll pay you back." She didn't even hesitate. "No, you chose your games over work. You chose laziness over effort. Live with it." His face twisted with rage. "You're heartless." "No," she said calmly, "I'm finally free." That night, as she lay in bed, Casey thought about revenge. Not the kind that came with yelling matches or broken furniture. The kind that was subtle, devastating, impossible to ignore. She realized that the best revenge was not destruction, it was transformation. She would rise so high that they would feel their own insignificance every time her name was mentioned. So she began making moves. She networked aggressively, attending every corporate dinner and mixer she could. She polished her online presence, updating her LinkedIn, sharing her achievements, letting the world see what she was capable of. She started putting away money for her own place, determined that one day soon she would leave the toxic walls of her family's house behind forever. But fate had its own way of speeding things up. One evening, she came home to find her father and brother waiting in the living room, expressions grim. Her father cleared his throat. "Casey, we need money. Now. The bank is threatening foreclosure." She blinked. "And you expect me to fix that? You're the only one making real money here," her father growled. "You owe us." Casey set her bag down slowly. "I don't owe you anything. Not after the way you've treated me." Not after you smashed my laptop, mocked my dreams, called me pathetic. Her brother jumped in, his voice desperate. Casey, please. Without you, we'll lose the house. Her eyes narrowed. And why should I save a house that never felt like home? You broke me down every chance you got. Maybe losing this place will teach you what it feels like to lose something that mattered. Her father slammed his fist on the coffee table. Ungrateful brat. We raised you. Casey's laugh was cold, hollow. Raised me? No. You tried to bury me. You mocked me for every success, destroyed my hard work, and expected me to crawl back for more punishment. Well, I won't. I'm done. The words hung in the air like a blade. Her father's face turned red with fury, her brother's eyes watered with panic. But Casey stood tall, calm, resolute. That night, she packed a small bag. She wasn't leaving for good, not yet, but she wanted them to feel the absence of her presence, her money, her support. She booked a hotel suite, ironic, she thought, considering her line of work, and slept better than she had in years. Lying in the crisp white sheets, Casey made herself a promise. She wouldn't just walk away from her family, she would outgrow them so completely that they would be forced to see her from below. She would become living proof that their cruelty had failed. Her revenge was no longer a plan. It was already in motion. The morning sun filtered through the hotel curtains, casting golden stripes across Casey's bed. She stretched, savoring the silence. No shouting father, no mocking brother, no constant demand for money. Just peace. For the first time in years, she felt like she was living her own life. After a long shower, she walked to the window and gazed down at the bustling city streets. People hurried to work, taxis honked, and hotel staff moved gracefully below. Casey smiled. This was the world she belonged to, not the suffocating four walls of her family's house, but here, where ambition and drive actually meant something. At breakfast, she sat alone in the hotel cafe, sipping coffee and reviewing her notes for an upcoming corporate meeting. Her phone buzzed. It was her brother. She ignored it. A second buzz. Then a third. With a sigh, she flipped the phone over and turned it silent. She wasn't going to let them ruin her morning. Later that day, during a meeting with senior management, Casey delivered a flawless presentation about guest retention strategies. Charts, numbers, real solutions, her work was crisp, professional, undeniable. When she finished, the room erupted in nods and quiet praise. Her director leaned over and whispered, "You nailed it." By evening, her inbox was full of congratulations from corporate leaders. She was becoming a name people noticed, a problem solver they trusted. She tucked her phone back into her bag, grinning. Each success was another reminder that she didn't need her family's approval. But when she returned to her hotel suite that night, she couldn't ignore the dozens of missed calls and messages from her brother and father. Curiosity tugged at her, and finally, she opened one. "Where are you? We need you here. Don't you care if we lose the house?" Another. "Casey, stop being selfish. You're tearing this family apart." Her father's voicemail was harsher. "You think you're too good for us now. Don't forget who raised you. You'll regret turning your back on us." Casey stared at the phone, a bitter laugh escaping her lips. Raised me. They had mocked, belittled, and broken her spirit every chance they got. She didn't owe them a rescue. If anything, they owed her years of apologies. The next morning, she met her friend and coworker, Maya, for brunch. Maya noticed the shadow on her face. "What's wrong? You've been glowing lately, but today you look tired." Casey hesitated, then sighed. "It's my family. They want me to cover the mortgage. But they've never supported me, not once. They've mocked me, broken my things, treated me like garbage. And now they expect me to bail them out." Maya leaned forward, eyes sharp. "Casey, you don't owe them a dime. Family doesn't mean you let people abuse you. Family is supposed to lift you up, not drag you down. You've worked too hard to let them pull you back." Casey nodded slowly. Maya was right. She needed to stop second-guessing herself. Her success wasn't theirs to claim, it was hers alone. That evening, Casey decided to call home, not to cave, but to make herself clear. Her father picked up on the second ring. "Well, it's about time," he barked. "Where have you been?" "Busy," Casey said flatly. "Working. Building a life. Something you never respected. You think your little job makes you better than us." he snarled. You wouldn't have gotten anywhere without this family. Casey's laugh was sharp. Without this family, I'd be farther. You tried to keep me small, but I grew anyway. And now, I'm done letting you drain me. You need money. Figure it out yourselves. Her father cursed under his breath. Her brother's voice shouted in the background, Casey, come on. We're family. No, Casey said coldly. Family doesn't smash your laptop before the biggest day of your career. Family doesn't call you pathetic every time you succeed. Family doesn't make you feel worthless. You're not my family, you're just people I grew up with. And with that, she hung up. Her hands trembled, not with fear, but with liberation. She had finally spoken the truth out loud. She had severed the tie. In the weeks that followed, Casey flourished. She moved her things from her family's house into a small apartment downtown, her first true home. It was modest, but it was hers. She decorated it with warm colors, plants, and framed photographs of her travels. Every corner radiated peace. Her work continued to soar. The regional role was offered officially, and she accepted it without hesitation. She began traveling to other properties, training staff, and presenting strategies. Her name circulated through corporate channels as a rising star. Meanwhile, back at her old house, the cracks widened. Her brother's car remained broken, her father's debts piled higher, and the bank's letters became more threatening. Without Casey's financial lifeline, they were forced to face the reality of their own failures. And though they never said it out loud, they began to realize the truth. Casey had been their strongest pillar all along. One evening, Casey received a message from her mother. It was short, almost timid. I'm proud of you. I wish things had been different. Casey read it twice, her throat tightening. She wanted to believe it. But deep down, she knew that silence in the past had been complicity. Her mother had chosen not to defend her. And now, those words felt too late. Casey put her phone down and whispered to herself, you'll only know me from a distance now. Her revenge wasn't a single act. It was a life well lived, a career thriving, a peace they could never touch. And as her father and brother watched their world crumble, they would know, without doubt, that they had created their own downfall. And Casey, she would rise higher still. The airport terminal buzzed with life as Casey wheeled her sleek black suitcase toward the gate. Her blazer was perfectly pressed, her posture tall, her smile effortless. She wasn't just traveling for leisure, she was flying out for her first regional assignment, leading a training seminar for hotel managers across 3 different cities. As she boarded the plane, she thought about how far she had come. Just months ago, she had been fighting for respect in her own living room, begging her family to see her worth. Now, she didn't need their validation. The world saw her clearly, and it applauded. When the seminar began, Casey owned the stage. Her slides were sharp, her voice confident, her presence magnetic. Managers from across the country scribbled notes, nodding as she outlined innovative strategies. Afterward, several approached her personally to thank her. One even said, "You make leadership look effortless." That night, as she sat in her hotel room, Casey opened her email to find a message from the corporate vice president. Casey, I've been hearing glowing reports about your seminar. Your future here is bright. Keep it up. She leaned back in her chair, a slow smile spreading across her face. This was the recognition she had craved all her life, not shallow approval, not pity, but genuine respect earned through hard work. Meanwhile, her family's world was unraveling. At her old house, her father paced the kitchen with an overdue notice crumpled in his fist. The mortgage was slipping further behind. His credit cards were maxed out. The local bar had cut off his tab. For the first time, he couldn't bluster his way out of reality. Her brother wasn't doing any better. His broken car sat rusting in the driveway, and with no job, he relied on handouts from friends who were quickly running out of patience. He spent his nights glued to video games, but even his online companions grew tired of his constant complaining. One night, in desperation, her brother tried calling Casey again. This time, she answered, not out of sympathy, but out of curiosity. "Casey," he said, his voice frantic. "You have to help us. Dad's freaking out. The bank is about to take the house." Casey's tone was calm, icy. "And why should I care? When I needed support, when I needed family, what did you give me? Mockery. Cruelty. You called me pathetic. Dad smashed my laptop the night before my career-defining presentation. You both tried to keep me down. And now you expect me to save you. Her brother stammered. But we're family. No, Casey cut in. Family builds you up. Family has your back. You were never that to me. You're just people I share DNA with. And I don't owe you anything. She ended the call, her chest heaving. The old Casey might have wavered, might have given in. But not anymore. She had drawn a line, and she would not cross it again. Days later, the inevitable happened. Casey's father lost the house. The foreclosure notice came, and within weeks, they were forced out. He raged at the injustice, blaming the bank, the system, anyone but himself. Her brother sulked, whining about bad luck. But deep down, they both knew the truth. They had burned the only bridge that could have saved them. Word of their downfall spread quietly through the neighborhood. Once, her father had strutted proudly, boasting about how he kept his family in line. Now, he was just another man who had lost everything. Casey, meanwhile, moved into a new apartment uptown. It was spacious, modern, with a view of the skyline that glowed at night. She bought herself a new laptop, top of the line, sleek and powerful, and placed it carefully on her polished desk. Every time she opened it, she remembered the old one, shattered on the floor, and smiled. This one was hers, untouched by anyone's cruelty. At work, her influence continued to grow. She was asked to sit on advisory panels, to consult on new projects, to mentor rising employees. She traveled often, her name gaining recognition beyond her own company. At conferences, people sought her out, eager to learn from her. Her revenge wasn't explosive. It wasn't a dramatic showdown. It was quiet, steady, undeniable success that echoed louder than any insult ever had. One afternoon, as she walked through the lobby of the flagship hotel, a man at the front desk turned. It was an old neighbor, someone who had lived a few houses down when Casey was younger. His eyes widened in surprise. Casey, I heard about your dad and brother. Tough times, huh? Casey smiled politely. Yes, I heard too. But I'm doing well, thank you. The neighbor nodded, almost in awe. More than well, I'd say. They always underestimated you. Guess you proved them wrong. Casey walked away, her heels clicking against the marble floor, her chest filled with quiet triumph. She didn't need to scream her revenge from rooftops. The world already knew. That evening, sitting on her balcony overlooking the glowing city, Casey sipped a glass of wine and whispered to herself, "You tried to keep me small. But I grew too big for you to contain. And now, you'll spend the rest of your lives watching me soar." Her story wasn't over, it was only beginning. The city lights glittered outside Casey's office window as she reviewed the final slides for another high-profile presentation. She had been asked to present directly to the board of directors, a level of visibility she once only dreamed of. Her rise had been meteoric, built on grit, resilience, and a determination to never let her family's cruelty define her. As she rehearsed her lines, her phone buzzed. She glanced at the caller ID and froze. It was her mother. For a moment, Casey considered ignoring it. But something inside her whispered that she should pick up. She tapped the screen. Casey. Her mother's voice was soft, almost trembling. "It's me." "I know," Casey replied coolly. There was a long pause. Then her mother spoke again. We don't have anywhere to go. Your father and brother are staying at a cheap motel. It's terrible. He drinks more now. Your brother barely leaves the room. Casey cut in. "And what do you expect me to do about it?" "I don't know," her mother whispered. "Maybe nothing. But I wanted you to know, you were right. About all of it. They treated you horribly. I should have defended you. I didn't. And now," her voice cracked. "Now it's too late." Casey's throat tightened, but she held firm. "Yes. It is too late. I needed you then, not now. You stayed silent while they tore me apart. Silence is betrayal too, Mom." Her mother sniffled quietly. "I just wanted you to know I'm sorry." Casey closed her eyes. She believed her mother's regret was real, but regret couldn't erase the years of pain. "I appreciate you saying that. But I'm not coming back. I built a life without you all. And I'm not going to ruin it by letting your chaos back in." There was no anger in her voice, only finality. After a long silence, her mother whispered, "Take care of yourself." "I will," Casey said softly, and ended the call. She sat in silence for a long moment, staring at the city skyline. For the first time, she realized that revenge wasn't about making them suffer, it was about refusing to suffer anymore. She had done that. She had broken free. The next day, her presentation was a triumph. She spoke with clarity, confidence, and authority. The board members applauded her ideas, and the CEO himself shook her hand afterward, saying, "You're the kind of leader this company needs. Expect big things ahead." Casey left the building with her heart pounding. Big things ahead. The words echoed in her mind. She had already risen higher than her family ever believed possible, and she was still climbing. A week later, fate delivered one last encounter. She was leaving a downtown restaurant after a dinner with investors when she heard a familiar voice. Casey. She turned. Standing on the sidewalk, clothes wrinkled and eyes bloodshot, was her father. Her brother lingered behind him, thinner now, with dark circles under his eyes. They looked nothing like the arrogant men who once mocked her. They looked defeated. Her father stepped closer. "Casey, please. We're not doing well. We need help." Casey held her ground. "And you think I'm the one to give it? After everything?" Her father's voice cracked. "I was wrong. About you. I shouldn't have treated you like that. You've proven yourself. You're better than us." Her brother muttered, barely audible, "We just need a chance." Casey studied them both. For years, she had dreamed of this moment, of them on their knees, admitting their failures. But now that it was here, she felt no satisfaction, no joy. Only distance. "You don't need a chance," she said quietly. "You need consequences. And you've found them. I won't bail you out. I won't let you drag me down. My life is proof enough that your cruelty failed. That's all the revenge I need." Her father's shoulders sagged. Her brother stared at the ground. Without another word, Casey turned and walked away, her heels clicking against the pavement. As she slid into the back of a waiting car, she exhaled slowly. This was closure. Not by saving them, not by destroying them, but by refusing to let them touch her world again. That night, from her apartment balcony, she looked out at the glowing skyline. The city stretched before her, endless and full of possibility. She raised her glass of wine to the air and whispered, "Here's to freedom. Here's to never being small again." And in that moment, Casey knew, she had won. Her revenge was complete, not through fury or violence, but through living a life so extraordinary that the ones who tried to break her could only watch from the shadows. Months passed, and Casey's world expanded in ways she had never imagined. Her name was now circulating not just within her company but across the industry. Articles appeared in business magazines praising her innovative ideas. Invitations poured in for panels, conferences, and networking events. Casey accepted them strategically, choosing places where her presence would matter most. She had learned to play the game, not for validation, but for influence. Every speech she gave, every deal she secured, every headline with her name in it was another stone laid in the empire she was building. Her crowning moment came when she was asked to deliver a keynote address at an international leadership summit in New York. The event gathered CEOs, innovators, and leaders from around the globe. Standing behind the podium, Casey looked out at the sea of expectant faces. "I wasn't born with privilege," she began, her voice strong and steady. "I wasn't raised in a supportive family. In fact, I was told I wasn't good enough, that I'd never succeed, that I would only embarrass the people around me. For years, I believed those lies." The audience leaned in, captivated. "But here's the truth," she continued. "People can try to bury you under doubt, ridicule, and rejection. But what they don't realize is that pressure creates diamonds. I stand here today not in spite of what I endured, but because of it. I turned their cruelty into fuel. And anyone out there who has been underestimated, you can too." The room erupted in applause. Some people even stood, clapping until their hands turned red. Casey felt a warmth in her chest she had never felt before. Not revenge, not validation, something greater, purpose. After the speech, people crowded around her, eager to shake her hand, exchange cards, or snap a photo. Casey smiled graciously, but deep down she was thinking of the girl she used to be, the one locked in her room on her cousin's wedding day, crying because she wasn't good enough to be invited. That girl was gone. In her place stood a woman the world admired. Later that evening, as she sat in her hotel suite overlooking Central Park, Casey opened her laptop and began writing. Not another proposal, not another presentation, this time, it was a book. She titled it, Rise from the Ashes, Turning Pain into Power. In its pages, she poured out her story, not with bitterness but with honesty. She wrote about betrayal, about being left out, about being made to feel small. But she also wrote about growth, resilience, and the unstoppable power of refusing to quit. The book became a bestseller within weeks of its release. Readers from all walks of life, young professionals, single parents, survivors of toxic families, wrote to her, thanking her for giving them hope. One letter stood out. I thought I was worthless because of the way my family treated me. But after reading your story, I realized I can build my own worth, just like you did. Thank you for saving me from giving up. Tears pricked Casey's eyes as she folded the letter carefully and placed it in a drawer. For the first time, she understood the true impact of her journey. Her revenge wasn't just about proving her family wrong anymore, it was about inspiring others to prove everyone wrong. Meanwhile, her family's world continued to crumble. Word spread about their bankruptcy, their eviction, and their ongoing financial troubles. Once respected in their community, they were now whispered about with pity. Casey didn't seek out these updates, but they always found their way to her. And every time she heard them, she felt nothing. The anger that once burned so hot had cooled into indifference. One evening, while signing copies of her book at a packed event, Casey noticed someone lingering at the back of the line. It was her cousin, the same one whose wedding she had been excluded from years ago. Her cousin stepped forward nervously, clutching a copy of the book. "Hi, Casey. I don't know if you'll remember me." "Oh, I remember," Casey replied with a calm smile. Her cousin swallowed hard. "I just wanted to say, I'm sorry. For everything. I should have spoken up back then. I didn't. And I regret it." Casey studied her for a long moment. In the old days, she might have unleashed all the bitterness she'd carried. But now she had nothing left to prove. "I accept your apology," Casey said softly, signing the book and sliding it back across the table. "But don't apologize to me. Apologize to yourself for staying silent. That's where the real healing begins." Her cousin's eyes filled with tears as she nodded and walked away. Casey watched her go, then turned back to the next reader in line. By the time Casey left the event, the night air felt crisp and full of possibility. She walked through the city streets, head held high, no shadows trailing her. She had achieved more than success. She had achieved peace. As she stood at a crosswalk, lights reflecting off the glass skyscrapers above, Casey whispered to herself, "I won." Not because her family had fallen, but because she had risen. Not because she destroyed them, but because she built herself. And in that truth, her story found its perfect ending. Casey's journey was never about luck. It was about choice. Every step she took, every boundary she set, every tear she wiped from her own face, it all led her here. Years later, Casey stood on the balcony of her penthouse apartment, overlooking a skyline that shimmered with possibility. She sipped her coffee slowly, breathing in the quiet satisfaction of a life she had built with her own two hands. The pain of her past was still a part of her, but now it felt like an old scar, visible but no longer tender. The world knew her as a leader, a best-selling author, a keynote speaker, a trailblazer. But inside, she knew herself as something even greater, a survivor who refused to stay broken. One morning, she received a letter. Not an email, not a text. An actual handwritten letter. It was from her father. The words were shaky, scribbled, almost desperate. "Casey, I don't know if you'll even read this. I've lost everything. The business, the house, even your brother barely speaks to me now. I realize too late that I failed you. I wasn't just a bad father. I was cruel. I can see now what I destroyed when I broke that laptop. It wasn't just a machine, it was your dream, your future, your hope. I'm sorry. I don't expect forgiveness. I just needed you to know, I regret everything." Casey read the letter twice, her expression calm, unreadable. A younger version of herself might have cried, might have screamed, might have felt satisfaction at seeing him beg. But this Casey, the woman she had become, felt only clarity. She sat at her desk, pulled out a sheet of paper, and began to write. "Dad, I received your letter. I hear your regret. But you're wrong about one thing. You didn't destroy my future. You lit the fire that forced me to build one. I don't forgive you, not yet. Forgiveness is a journey, not a gift. But I no longer need your approval, your apology, or your recognition. I built myself without them. I hope you find peace, because I already have. She folded the letter, placed it in an envelope, and sent it off. That was enough. That night, Casey stood in front of a mirror, not to check her outfit, but to see herself clearly. She touched her reflection, as if acknowledging the person she had become. Strong, unstoppable, free. Her life wasn't perfect, no one's ever is. But it was hers, and that was the victory her family had tried so hard to deny her. In the quiet moments, when the city outside her window buzzed with noise, Casey often thought back to that night, the night her father shattered her $2,400 laptop. She remembered the sound of it hitting the floor, the laughter that followed, the hopelessness that clawed at her chest. And then she remembered what came after. The fight, the rise, the triumph. She realized something powerful. Sometimes, the very moment meant to break you is the one that builds you. That truth became the heartbeat of her speeches, her book, her story. Audiences didn't just listen to Casey because she was successful, they listened because she was real. Because she had lived the pain they were living. Because she had turned it into something beautiful. And so, her revenge was complete. Not the bitter, angry kind of revenge her family might have expected. But the sweetest kind, the kind that required no cruelty, no destruction, no shouting. The kind that simply shined so brightly, it made every shadow around her irrelevant. Casey no longer cared if her family saw her success. She no longer cared if they whispered, envied, or regretted. Because in the end, the only person she ever needed to prove wrong was herself, the girl who once believed she wasn't good enough. And now, there was no doubt left. She was more than enough. The story of Casey ends not with rage, but with peace. Not with destruction, but with creation. Not with family approval, but with self-acceptance.